When a narcissist lies to you, the mistake most people make is focusing on the lie itself. They argue about facts, defend their memory, or try to prove what really happened. But the truth is, the lie is never the real issue. The lie is just a symptom. What actually matters is why the lie exists in the first place. Because once you understand that, the entire performance starts to unravel. Before you can expose deception, you need to understand the internal threat a narcissist experiences when the truth gets too close. This isn't about morality. It isn't about honesty. It's about survival, psychological survival. Picture a scenario where your life depends on what you say next. Someone dangerous is standing in front of you, demanding answers. If you tell the truth, you're dead. If you lie convincingly enough, you might live. In that moment, lying wouldn't feel wrong. It would feel necessary. Your nervous system would take over. Self-preservation would override everything else. For a narcissist, that's exactly what lying feels like. The threat isn't physical, but it's just as real to them. The danger is exposure. The risk is shame. And the thing they're protecting is not their reputation or even their relationships. It's their identity. A narcissist doesn't have a stable internal sense of self. Instead, they construct an artificial version of who they are, and they cling to it desperately. Imagine this false self as a large, glossy balloon. From the outside, it looks impressive, confident, solid, even enviable. But inside, it's empty. There's no weight to it, no substance holding it together. And because it's hollow, it's incredibly fragile. Every lie a narcissist tells serves this balloon in one of three ways. Either they're trying to keep it from popping, keep it from deflating, or keep you from seeing what's inside. The first and most urgent motivation is preventing the balloon from popping. Any criticism, accountability, or exposure of flaws feels catastrophic to them. What might feel like a normal conversation to you feels like an existential threat to them. A simple question can feel like a sharp needle. A reasonable concern can feel like an attack. So when the truth threatens to puncture their image, they lie automatically. This is why narcissists deny things so confidently, even when the evidence is obvious. They'll say something never happened while staring straight at proof that it did. They'll rewrite history without hesitation. And what makes this so destabilizing is the certainty with which they do it. They don't sound unsure. They don't hedge. They don't second-guess themselves. They speak as if reality itself is on their side. When denial doesn't work, they shift the focus. Suddenly the issue isn't what they did, it's how you brought it up. Or your tone, or your timing, or your supposed flaws. Blame becomes a smokescreen, designed to make you feel like the problem for noticing the problem. And if you continue pushing, they escalate into storytelling. This is where things get strange. The story becomes overly detailed, oddly complex, and filled with irrelevant specifics. Names, times, side plots, emotional flourishes, all of it meant to overwhelm you. The goal isn't to convince you. The goal is to exhaust you. Confusion is their shield. Here's an important insight that doesn't get talked about enough. The more elaborate the explanation, the more likely it's hiding something. Truth is usually simple. Lies require architecture. So how do you deal with this without getting pulled into the maze? You don't confront the lie head-on. You don't accuse. You don't argue. Instead, you apply pressure where the lie is weakest. Specifics. When a narcissist is lying to protect their image, clarity is dangerous for them. Precision is threatening. So your job is to calmly invite detail, without emotion, without accusation. You ask questions that sound curious, not confrontational. That's interesting. Can you walk me through exactly how that happened? This does two things at once. First, it forces them to commit to a version of events. Second, it signals that you're paying attention. Not emotionally, but analytically. That alone is unsettling to someone who relies on confusion to stay in control. Imagine you catch them doing something questionable, texting someone they shouldn't be, for example. Instead of reacting, you stay calm. You ask when it happened, where they were, who else was involved, and then you watch. If they're lying, discomfort shows up quickly. Their answers become vague. Their tone shifts. They may get defensive or irritated, or suddenly try to flip the script and accuse you of being paranoid or controlling. Their body language often betrays them. restlessness, avoidance, tension. The story may subtly change as you ask follow-up questions. If they're telling the truth, the experience feels different. The answers remain consistent. The details align naturally. There's no emotional spike, no urgency to escape the conversation. Truth doesn't need to rush. The point of this process is not to extract a confession. Narcissists almost never admit the truth when cornered. The real goal is internal clarity. You're not trying to win an argument. You're trying to see reality clearly enough to trust yourself again. And that matters, because one of the most damaging effects of narcissistic lying isn't the deception itself. It's the self-doubt it creates in you. Over time, you stop trusting your own perception. You second-guess your memory. You wonder if you're overreacting. That internal erosion is not accidental. It's a byproduct of protecting their balloon at your expense. The second major reason narcissists lie is to keep their balloon from deflating. This is about supply, attention, emotional energy, validation, control. Narcissistic supply is the fuel that keeps their false self inflated, and without it, they feel empty and insignificant. They don't just enjoy attention, they depend on it. Praise, admiration, sympathy, outrage, even conflict can all serve the same function. As long as you're emotionally engaged, the balloon stays full. So they lie to generate reactions. They exaggerate achievements to seem impressive. They fabricate crises to seem important. They distort conversations to maintain control. Every lie is designed to pull energy from you and redirect it toward their ego. This is why arguing with a narcissist often backfires. Even negative attention feeds the system. Your frustration, your anger, your tears, all of it becomes proof of their impact, proof that they matter. The most effective response in these situations isn't confrontation. It's withdrawal, emotional neutrality. This is where what's often called gray rock becomes powerful, not as a tactic to manipulate them, but as a way to protect yourself. When you remove emotional engagement, the balloon starts to lose air. If they tell a story that feels exaggerated or self-serving, you don't react with awe or skepticism. You respond with calm curiosity, flat tone, minimal expression. You ask a simple question that requires explanation but offers no emotional reward. Why do you think that happened? That question does something subtle but profound. It denies them instant validation while forcing them to expand on their claim. If they're lying to gain admiration or sympathy, the lack of emotional payoff throws them off balance. Again, you observe. Are their emotions exaggerated? Do they feel performative? Do the details stay consistent when gently questioned? Or do things start to unravel? If something feels off, you follow up, not aggressively, but neutrally. Is there any reason I might have heard a different version of this? This kind of question creates a quiet dilemma for them. Either they double down and risk contradiction, or they retreat and lose control of the narrative. Either way, the truth starts to surface, not necessarily in what they say, but in how they respond. What's important here is your internal stance. You're not trying to expose them to themselves, you're exposing the pattern to you. You're learning how their system works so you don't get trapped inside it. And here's an opinion that may feel uncomfortable, but is crucial. Once you can clearly see these patterns, you can't unsee them. At that point, the relationship doesn't change because they've been exposed. It changes because you stop participating in the illusion. And that leads us to the deepest layer of narcissistic deception. The lies told not to protect an image or gain supply, but to hide what's underneath entirely. The third and most fundamental reason a narcissist lies is the one that rarely gets talked about directly, because it's the most unsettling to confront. These are not lies meant to impress you or distract you or even control you in the moment. These are lies designed to hide what exists, or more accurately, what does not exist, beneath the surface. At the core of the narcissistic structure is an absence, not a quietness, not emotional restraint, but a genuine lack of inner substance. There is no stable identity anchored in values, empathy, or self-awareness. And if that absence were ever fully seen, the entire construction would collapse. This is why the balloon metaphor matters so much. When a normal person is challenged, they may feel embarrassed or defensive, but their sense of self remains intact. When a narcissist is challenged at the level of who they really are, there is nothing solid to fall back on. Exposure doesn't wound them, it annihilates the illusion they survive on. So they lie about depth, they lie about care, they lie about intention, and most dangerously, they lie about who they are when no one is watching. They may insist they understand your feelings deeply, using the right words at the right moments. They may mirror your pain convincingly, nodding, validating, sounding emotionally present. But this is not empathy. It is imitation. They've learned what empathy is supposed to look like, not what it feels like. They will claim to care about people, causes, morals, and principles. But if you observe closely, that concern rarely translates into consistent action unless there's something to gain. Their compassion appears on cue and disappears just as quickly. It's situational, performative, and transactional. Most importantly, they lie about their motivations. Every decision is calculated for impact, leverage, or advantage. Yet they'll insist everything they do is spontaneous, heartfelt, or misunderstood. If you ever truly saw the machinery behind the mask, the manipulation would be undeniable. And that's the one thing they cannot allow. These lies are not strategic in the usual sense. They are reflexive, automatic. They exist because the narcissist cannot tolerate being seen as empty, ordinary, or emotionally shallow. That perception would strip them of supply, control, and identity all at once. So how do you expose something that doesn't want to be seen? Something that has spent a lifetime perfecting camouflage? You don't confront it directly. You don't accuse them of being fake or hollow. That only triggers rage, denial, or a deeper performance. Instead, you look for one thing: congruence. Congruence is the alignment between words and behavior. It is where truth quietly reveals itself without argument. When someone is genuine, their actions naturally support their claims over time. When someone is deceptive, the mismatch becomes impossible to hide. This is where narcissists fail consistently. They are exceptionally skilled with words. They can promise, explain, justify, apologize, and perform emotional depth with impressive fluency. Language is their strongest weapon. But behavior is where the emptiness leaks through. They might say they value honesty, yet lie effortlessly when it suits them. They might claim loyalty, yet betray without hesitation. They might express concern, yet disappear the moment support is inconvenient. These are not isolated incidents, they are patterns, and patterns are everything. A narcissist can fake an action once, maybe twice. They can show up briefly when it benefits them or when their image is at stake. But sustaining congruent behavior over time requires an internal structure they simply don't have. This is why watching what they do, not what they say, is so powerful. You stop engaging with the story they're telling and start paying attention to the evidence they're living. Do their actions support their claims consistently, especially when there's no audience? Do they follow through when there's nothing to gain? Do they show care when it costs them something? If the answer is no, the truth is already visible. And here's a crucial opinion that often gets ignored. Once you start prioritizing behavior over explanation, manipulation loses most of its power. Words stop hypnotizing you. Promises stop soothing you. Emotional speeches stop confusing you. You no longer need to prove they're lying. You don't need closure. You don't need acknowledgement. Reality speaks for itself. This shift can feel unsettling at first because it means giving up the hope that one perfect conversation will finally make them understand, confess, or change. But that hope is part of the trap. It keeps you engaged. It keeps the balloon inflated. When you detach from their narrative and anchor yourself in observable reality, something important happens internally. Your nervous system calms. Your thinking clears. You stop reacting and start assessing. That's when you realize something sobering but liberating. The truth was never hidden from you. It was buried under noise. The lies, the stories, the emotional performances, they were all designed to keep you focused outward, questioning yourself instead of observing them. Once that spell breaks, their power diminishes rapidly. And this is where many people struggle, because seeing clearly often leads to grief. You're not just realizing that someone lied to you, you're realizing that the person you thought you were dealing with never truly existed. That loss can hurt deeply, but it also marks the beginning of psychological freedom. From this point forward, your goal is no longer exposure, it's navigation. You understand why they lie, how they lie, and where the truth actually lives. That knowledge becomes your protection. You ask fewer questions. You explain less. You engage selectively. You trust patterns over promises. And most importantly, you stop offering emotional energy to performances designed to extract it. If a narcissist senses that their words no longer control your perception, they often escalate. More dramatic stories, more urgency, more attempts to provoke emotion. This isn't confidence, it's panic. The balloon is losing air. And this is where the final decision quietly forms inside you. Not whether they'll change, but whether you'll continue participating. Because once you see the emptiness clearly, you also see the cost of staying close to it. Prolonged exposure erodes self-trust, clarity, and emotional stability. It pulls you into a reality where truth is negotiable and your perception is constantly questioned. Stepping out of that dynamic doesn't require confrontation. It requires alignment with reality, with your values, and with your own lived experience. The moment you stop trying to get the truth from a narcissist and start recognizing it through their behavior, you reclaim your power. Not loudly, not dramatically, but decisively. And that is something no lie can survive.